Welcome back to Binge Guide, the next show.
Our deep dive into the latest movies.
You got it. And I'm Andrew.
I'm Victoria.
And Victoria, you know what we're looking at today.
Well, we gotta talk about William Tell.
William Tell, all right. Now, this has already premiered in Australia.
Back on February 21st.
February 21st, 2025. And those of you in the U.S., you're going to have to wait a little bit.
Just a little bit longer, April 4th.
April 4th, 2025. But we're going to get into all that in a bit. But first, we got to talk about this movie.
Yeah, so William Tell.
William Tell.
Yeah.
The legendary, how many of us grew up with, the image of the apple on the kid's head?
Oh, yeah.
And the crossbow, right?
A Swiss folk hero.
That's what we're talking about, and this is a new cinematic take.
A new take.
And what's interesting is, we've got a bunch of sources for this deep dive.
Oh, we went deep.
And we always go deep.
We did interviews, we watched previews, we scoured news articles.
We even looked into the historical William Tell.
Oh, yeah. Had to do it.
That's right. You can't talk about William Tell without understanding a little bit of the history behind it.
A little bit of the context.
So what we're really going to try to do today is figure out what makes this adaptation noteworthy.
Yeah, because there's been other William Tell adaptations.
There have been.
So why is this one?
Why is this one special?
Yeah.
Well, maybe we should start with the man of the hour.
The man himself.
Claes Bang.
Claes Bang.
I always mess up that last name.
We
But
did.
anyway, he stars as William Tell in this movie. And in an interview, he talked about his understanding of the legend before he signed on. And, he was a little embarrassed to admit it.
She thought it was a traveling circus act.
A traveling circus act.
I mean, I kind of get it.
If you just think of the apple and the crossbow.
Yeah, like a carnival game almost.
Yeah, but like a sideshow.
But obviously, there's so much more to it.
So much more. And that's what I think is so great about this deep dive.
Yeah. Getting past those initial impressions.
Right. Claes Bang learned a lot about William Tell as he was preparing for the role.
Oh, definitely. And he started to see these, bigger themes. The fight for freedom.
Standing up to an oppressor.
Yeah.
These are universal ideas.
Absolutely. What do you do when somebody tries to take control of your home, your life?
Do you resist?
You just give in.
Right.
It's such a timeless conflict, and I think it's something that, as viewers, we can always connect with.
Totally. And what I think is fascinating is that Claes Bang and the filmmakers, they felt a real sense of responsibility because they were making this movie while there were, some major world events going on.
Oh, yeah. They were filming during the conflict in Ukraine and the situation between Hamas and Israel.
And it really sounds like they were trying to make a movie that spoke to that.
Yeah, an anti-war movie.
With a really strong message.
Yeah. And so you have this story that's, centuries old, but it's suddenly got this whole new layer of relevance.
Yeah.
It's not just some historical costume drama.
No, it's about something real.
Right.
And it's also, about the man himself.
Oh, yeah, Tell.
William Tell.
He's not just a hero, he's human.
Right.
And he's got this internal struggle going on.
Yeah. He fought in the Crusades.
That's right.
And he really doesn't want to fight anymore.
Because he's seen some things.
Yeah, he's afraid of becoming that monster again.
That he might have to be to survive.
Right. And so it's like he's got this weight on him.
So much depth.
That's right. And Claes Bang really digs into that.
Yeah. He talked about how he focused on Tell's existential journey, what he was going through internally.
And I think that makes him a much more interesting character.
Oh, absolutely. More relatable.
Right. And it's not all about the action.
The action's there.
It's there.
But it serves the story.
Exactly. And I think that's a really important point for us as viewers.
I'm sure.
How much do we want historical accuracy?
In a story like this.
Yeah. The William Tell story, it's a legend.
A legend, yeah.
But it's got some historical basis, so how do you balance that?
How much do you stick to the facts?
Right.
How much creative license do you take?
Because sometimes those enduring themes, they're more important than getting every little detail right.
Mm-hmm.
And, Claes Bang actually shared something really personal.
Oh.
He really struggled with the apple scene.
Oh, yeah.
He just couldn't understand how a parent could put their child in that kind of danger.
It's a tough one.
It is. And it makes you think.
About the choices people have to make.
The motivation.
Yeah, why would you ever do that?
Right. And I think that's part of why that scene is so iconic.
It's so memorable.
It sticks with you.
Mm-hmm.
It stays with you. So, Claes Bang, he really wanted to play William Tell as a hero with flaws.
Yeah, not just a perfect, squeaky clean character.
Yeah.
That's way more interesting.
Yeah, because it makes him more human, right?
Totally. Like somebody we could actually imagine meeting.
Exactly.
Relate to.
And relate to.
Yeah.
Now, some people have been comparing this movie to Braveheart.
That's a big comparison.
It is a big comparison.
It is a huge movie.
But I can kind of see why they're doing it.
Well, I mean, both films are about an ordinary guy who ends up leading a rebellion.
Right, like William Wallace.
And they both have this historical, epic feel.
Yeah.
And I think that comparison helps us understand what William Tell is going for.
Right.
It's not just an action movie.
Right.
It's about resistance.
Against tyranny.
Exactly.
And that theme is so relevant today.
Oh, totally. I mean, look at what's happening in the world.
Yeah.
People standing up for their rights, their freedom.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that makes William Tell so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
It's a story that speaks to our times. And, for the trailers, it seems like they're going for a more grounded historical drama.
Not so much like a swashbuckler.
Yeah, not a cheesy action movie.
More like a serious historical epic.
Yeah. And I think that's a good thing.
Oh, yeah.
There have been other William Tell adaptations.
Some that went a little too far into fantasy.
Yeah, like they added all these weird elements that didn't really fit.
And it just didn't work.
Right. This movie seems to be sticking to the historical facts as much as possible.
At least with the costumes and the setting.
Yeah.
And I think that's smart.
Yeah, because it keeps the focus on the story.
And the characters.
Right. And the acting is top notch.
Oh, yeah. We've got Ben Kingsley as King Albert.
He always plays a good bad guy.
He does. And then there's Jonathan Pryce.
Connor Swindells.
Diarmaid Murtaugh.
And of course, Claes Bang.
It's a great cast.
It is a great cast. And some of those names might be new to some people.
Which is always exciting.
Yeah, it's good to see some fresh faces. So, we've talked about Braveheart.
Yeah.
But there's another comparison that I think is really interesting.
What's that?
Robin Hood.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, Robin Hood is like the ultimate outlaw hero.
He's been in so many movies.
So many movies. But William Tell, he's kind of like the Swiss Robin Hood.
I like that. The Swiss Robin Hood.
Right. He's fighting for freedom.
He's standing up to tyranny.
And he's using a bow and arrow, well, a crossbow.
Sure.
But it's the same idea.
Yeah, I see the connection.
And there haven't been that many William Tell movies.
Not compared to Robin Hood.
Right.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's partly because William Tell is such a Swiss icon.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's a symbol of Swiss national identity.
He is.
And his story, it's been told and retold in Switzerland for centuries.
Yeah.
But it hasn't really made it out to the rest of the world.
Until now, maybe?
Maybe. And this movie could change that.
It could be his big breakout moment.
Yeah. And, the crossbow, it's a really interesting weapon.
Yeah.
It was actually really effective in medieval mountain warfare.
You don't think about that.
No, you don't. But it makes sense.
It does. Like, it's accurate.
Yeah.
And powerful.
And it's easier to use than a bow and arrow.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. You don't need as much strength.
So it makes sense that William Tell would use a crossbow.
Yeah. It fits his character.
It does.
And it fits the setting.
Yeah.
And, there have been some William Tell movies.
But mostly European productions.
Right.
Smaller budget films.
Often in Swiss German.
So not really accessible to a global audience.
Right.
But this new William Tell, it's a big Hollywood production.
Yeah.
With a big star.
And it premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival.
So that tells us something.
Yeah. It tells us that they're taking this seriously.
Hmm.
And I think that's great.
Yeah.
Because William Tell deserves to be seen by a wider audience.
He does.
And his story, it's so relevant today.
Oh, totally. I mean, the idea of an ordinary guy becoming an assassin.
Yeah.
Because he's fighting against tyranny.
Yeah.
It's a powerful story.
And it's a story that needs to be told.
Agreed.
And, one of the things that I really liked about this movie is the historical detail.
Yeah, they did their research.
They did their research.
Yeah.
And they got a lot of things right.
Like the costumes.
The weapons.
Setting.
It really feels like you're transported back to the 14th century.
Mm-hmm.
And that's important.
Because it helps you connect with the story.
Yeah. And with the characters.
It does.
And You know, we mentioned King Albert.
Yeah, the bad guy.
He was a real historical figure.
He was.
He was a Habsburg.
And the Habsburgs were notorious for causing revolts.
Yeah, they were always trying to expand their empire.
And people didn't like that.
No, they didn't.
Yeah.
And so they rebelled.
And William Tell was one of those rebels.
He was. And that's what makes his story so compelling.
It is.
So let's talk about the U.S. release. Samuel Goldwyn Films, they've picked up the North American rights.
And it's coming out on April 4th, 2025.
April 4th, 2025. Write it down.
Mark your calendars.
And the director, Nick Hamm.
He's won a BAFTA.
He has. He's directed some great films.
Like Driven,
White Lines.
The Journey.
So we know he's a talented guy.
Yeah, he's got the chops.
He does. And the plot, it's pretty straightforward.
Lay it on me.
William Tell, peaceful huntsman.
Okay.
Austrians invade Switzerland.
Uh-oh.
Tell refuses to yield.
Classic Tell.
He and his family are thrust into the heart of a revolution.
Sounds epic.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And the cast, we've already talked about it, but it's worth repeating.
Oh, yeah. It's stacked.
It is. And the trailer, oh man, the trailer's just, it's amazing.
Gives me chills.
Gives me chills too. There's this one line, they're talking about the apple scene,
Oh, yeah.
and they say, shoot an apple from your son's head.
I mean, you got to include that.
You gotta include that, it's iconic.
It is.
And the themes of the movie, they're all there in the trailer.
For fun.
Family.
Resistance.
And there's this one line that really stuck with me. They say, your heavy hand has created a hero.
Ooh, that's good.
Isn't it? It's just, it's so powerful.
Yeah.
And it really speaks to the idea that, you know, when you oppress people, they're going to fight back.
You're going to rise up.
That's right. And the trailer ends with this call to arms.
Okay, what is it?
We will take back our homes.
Gives me goosebumps.
It's so good. So good. Now, let's talk a little bit about the William Tell legend.
Okay, back to the history.
Back to the history.
Yeah.
So, William Tell, he's a legendary folk hero of Switzerland.
The man, the myth, the legend.
That's right. And he's known for his skill with a crossbow.
He's an expert marksman.
That's right. And the most famous part of the legend is the apple shot.
Oh, yeah. Can't forget that.
Right. But the story goes deeper than that.
Deeper than that.
William Tell, he assassinates this Austrian governor, this guy named Albrecht Gessler,
It was a tyrant.
a real tyrant. And this act of defiance, it sparked a rebellion.
Which eventually led to the formation of the Swiss Confederacy.
Yeah, so William Tell, he's like a founding father of Switzerland.
Wow.
Yeah,
So this is all happening in the early 14th century, right?
right, around 1307.
1307.
But here's the thing.
What?
The first written records of the William Tell legend, they don't appear until the late 15th century.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like over 100 years later.
That's interesting.
It is interesting, isn't it?
Why do you think that is?
Well, some historians think that it might have been because Swiss influence was growing at that time,
Okay.
and they wanted to create a national hero.
Someone to rally around.
Exactly. And William Tell fit the bill.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And the legend evolved over time.
Like how so?
Well, the early versions of the story, they're pretty basic.
Just the apple shot and the assassination.
Yeah. But then, in the 16th century, this guy named Egidius Chudi, he wrote a more detailed version.
A more fleshed out version.
Yeah. And he added a lot of details that we know today,
Like what?
like William Tell's first name, Wilhelm,
Yeah.
and his hometown, Berglin,
Berglin.
and the exact date of the apple shot.
Oh, wow. November 18th, 1307.
That's right. And he also added the story of the second arrow,
The second arrow.
the one that William Tell was going to use to kill Gessler if he missed the apple.
Oh, right. I forgot about that part.
Yeah. And he also added the story of Tell's escape from Gessler's boat,
The famous Tellensprung.
the Tellensprung.
Very dramatic.
Very dramatic.
So Chudi really fleshed out the legend.
He did.
Yeah.
But historians think that he might have embellished some of the details.
Like maybe he made some stuff up.
Maybe. But either way, his version of the story became the most popular.
And the one that we know today?
That's right. But there's a big question that's been debated for centuries.
What's that?
Was William Tell a real person?
Oh, yeah. That's the big question.
It is. And there's no easy answer.
No clear historical evidence.
No. There are some documents from the 14th century that mention a rebellion in Switzerland,
Okay.
but there's no mention of William Tell.
So maybe he was just a legend.
Maybe. Or maybe he was a real person whose story got exaggerated over time.
That happens a lot with folk heroes.
It does. But whether he was real or not, his story has had a huge impact on Swiss culture.
He's a symbol of freedom and resistance.
That's right. And his story continues to inspire people today.
It does.
And you know what? On a totally random note, I came across this really strange connection to the William Tell legend.
Whoa.
It involves the writer William S. Burroughs.
What?
Yeah, so back in 1951, Burroughs accidentally shot and killed his wife, Joan Vollmer.
Oh, that's
It
awful.
was a terrible tragedy.
Yeah.
And some newspapers at the time, they described it as a William Tell prank gone wrong.
Wow. That's a really dark connection.
It is. But it just goes to show how ingrained the William Tell legend is in our culture.
Even in these unexpected and tragic ways.
Yeah. So to wrap things up, I think William Tell is a movie that's worth seeing.
I agree.
It's a powerful story about freedom and resistance.
With a great cast.
And a talented director.
And it's based on a legend that's been inspiring people for centuries.
That's right. And it's coming out in the U.S. on April 4th, 2025.
Don't miss it.
Don't miss it. And here's a question for you to think about. Does it really matter if William Tell was a real person? Or is the legend more important than the facts?
That's a good question.
It is. And I think it's a question that's worth pondering.
Absolutely.
So thanks for joining us for another deep dive on Binge Guide, the next show.
Your guide to all the latest movies.
That's right. We'll see you next time.
See ya.